All right, and welcome back to the Paisan Sports podcast.
Little tongue
I'm just
twister there?
realizing, I'm just realizing that might be a little bit of a tongue twister. Paisan Sports podcast, Paisan Sports podcast, Paisan Sports podcast. Maybe not. Anyway, done.
I mean,
Presented by
you said it
Elevation Five
now,
Two Eighty Sports.
what, is it the 93rd time that you've said that? And that's the first time I've ever heard you stumble over those words?
It's a good point. Anyway, presented by Elevation 5280 Sports, Dante DePlasto, joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I've got to ask, what's the deal with the bullpen? Okay. We have a great relievers. We had Gregory Soto. We had Sir Anthony Dominguez. We had
Whoa. You
Carlos
were never
Estevez. We had
you
Jeff
never put
Hoffman.
Gregory Soto in that you never put Gregory Soto in that tier personally.
Okay,
I
all right,
never
fine.
heard you blow over
You
him.
can
Like
have
you can't
Gregory Soto, but the other guys I've mentioned, I've always been high on. They pitch great
I'm
in
not
Phillies
saying Gregory
uniforms.
Soto's
They're
not in that
pitching great
tier.
elsewhere, and now we have no one left in our bullpen besides Jose Alvarado. They all stink, especially the big acquisition, Jordan Romano, aka Lil Dicky, in the Phillies uniform. He stinks. This bullpen stinks. They should be 2-0 in the series right now against the Braves. They very well could have lost last night if not for the heroics of Bryce Harper and Trey Turner. What's going on? What's going on? This is why I said going into the season. I remember not being thrilled going into the season. I didn't like the Max Kepler signing. And then last week I was like, oh, it turns out I was probably wrong about that. Nope. No, it turns out I was probably right about that. And I also didn't like how they got rid of all the good relievers. And I mean, they're
What's
all
your beef
pitching
with
great
Max?
elsewhere. Jeff Hoffman is lights out for the Blue Jays right now. And then you have Jordan Romano and other guys just blowing games right now. I don't
Well, I
know.
think
What's
they
going on?
thought like a certain ascension of Kirk Ring would happen, and I don't think it's happening as quickly as they thought. He's still a solid pitcher,
Hold on,
but
I'm having some
he's a little
technical
bit.
difficulties with my AirPods.
Are you good now?
That's weird. We talked like 20 minutes before we went live, and I was able to hear you just fine. And now my AirPods are acting funny. Let me see if I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, way better. All right, cool.
All right, cool. Yeah, but I was saying that the ascension that they probably thought of Orion Kirkring hasn't happened the way they thought about it would go, but he's still a solid
I
pitcher.
still have faith in him. He's got great
No, he's
stuff.
solid.
I
I'm
have a
not
ton
saying
of
there's
faith
anything
in
wrong
him.
with him, but like he's probably somebody that they thought they could, rely on a little bit more than they are
Mhm.
able to. And really, at this point, it's just Jose Alvarado out there and a bunch of guys that are just trying to get the job done. And it's really come down to the bats. But the Braves series itself, the Braves are really talented, even missing Ronald Acuna. They just got their catcher back. I was telling you before the season when you were like so high on the Braves, I was like, they're going to play the beginning of the season without Sean Murphy. And then Sean Murphy's first at bat of the season versus the Phillies is like a 400-foot home run. So
And you know what? A home run
that's
that
just
never
how
even
talented
should
they
have
are, too.
happened.
That's just how
A home
talented they
run
are.
that,
So they got
yeah.
everything up and down the lineup. Austin Riley was cranking dingers. Everybody was getting in the mix, and they're just a tough team to deal with. I mean, if Edmundo Sosa doesn't make one of the most ridiculous catches that a Phillies outfielder has ever made in the history of the team, Marcell Ozuna would have had gone deep as well.
Also,
So,
if there wasn't the miscommunication in the outfield, then the Sean Murphy
yeah,
home
then
run
the
never
three-run
would have
home run
happened.
doesn't happen. So,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
mean,
just the Braves are a good team. So, I mean, the bullpen, they were getting a true test in this series, and it's been back and forth for the first two
well,
games.
eh, you know
And it
what
came down
though?
to,
I
I mean,
just pulled up.
last night when we saw, I mean, when you give Bryce Harper, that was literally a fastball right down the middle. Like when you give Bryce Harper that pitch, it's over. But to see Trey step up in that at that point in the game in the ninth inning was very surprising, and it was a very timely first home run of the season. I think the way they're joggling their lineup, in the past I've been pretty critical of Kyle Schwarber not being a complete player, but I'm pretty much eating my words right now because there's only been one DH in the history of baseball to win MVP, and it was actually Shohei 3 different times. But Kyle Schwarber right now, the way that he's playing it, the Phillies finished with a really good record and the pace that he's on. I mean, it just seems like at one point in the game, he's always just getting a very timely big hit, and it happens multiple times this year. It's not just like it felt like it was like scarce before with Kyle Schwarber, like it would be like one big hit a game or he would just hit a couple home runs, but now it's like he mixes in a double in like the fourth inning and then he hits a home run in the seventh inning, and they're like very impactful things. And I think him not always consistently batting in the leadoff spot has really helped him because he kind of joggles around, and it shows like it seemed like before he was so locked into batting leadoff that they didn't want to change anything to mess with his rhythm because he was like the biggest power threat that they had besides Bryce Harper. But now being able to tweak the lineup the way that they are, I think it's done wonders for the Phillies. So I think the next tweak for the lineup could probably be Castellanos batting a little bit higher than Alec Bohm is, the way that Alec Bohm
Well, I
struggled.
think the big thing is when you have Schwarber leading off and you're you know, there should be no reason to have JT batting cleanup with Castellanos behind him. I think that's absolutely ridiculous when they've done that. JT, I said going into this season, I don't want to say washed. That feels kind of mean, but he is not the ball player he used to be. He's definitely.
I mean,
Well,
he's made
I think
some
he's still the same
gigantic
catcher
defensive
he
plays.
used to be. Yeah, he's still the catcher he used to be.
But
Certainly
also
not
the
the
thing
hitter.
is about him is everyone's so, JT's been a big bat. I mean, I feel like for some of the moments that have gone on in the playoffs, like I'll always remember, I mean, obviously the Bryce Harper bedlam at the bank, but the inside the park home run in the playoffs was one of my favorite moments in Phillies history. So that was like big and crucial.
Well,
And that just
also
showed at times.
The JT
Well,
go ahead home run in Game 1 of the World Series, but
yeah, I'm
that
saying
was in
he has been a
2022,
big part of their lineup, and
and
they
he
try
hasn't
to use
been
him in the
playing that
cleanup
well
spot in
since.
different times. They would use him in the four hole in the cleanup spot, but like a normal catcher on a team, it's like I saw the other day when I was looking at the box score for like the Royals and why their offense struggles a little bit, and everybody's saying like Bobby Witt Jr. is one of the best players in the league, which he is, and he's phenomenal. But when you look at their roster and the reason why guys like him and Paul Skeens with the Pirates like are struggling offensively to get production around those superstar players is because like the Royals are using like a 34-year-old Salvador Perez catcher in the four hole batting cleanup. You know what I mean? Like that's not a normal thing. Like a catcher usually isn't in that role. That's not what they're supposed to do. So the bat for JT has faded a little bit, but he's always been that like
It's
260
faded a
ish.
good bit. Look, it's
Yeah, I mean,
faded a
but he's
good
always
bit.
going to be
It's
floating
not
around that
what it
like.
used to be. I just don't think he should be batting this high in the order. Um,
Yeah, but
but
I
going
just
back
feel
to
like he's always going to fluctuate between like 250, maybe on a good day, he's like 265 ish. He gets some timely hits. He's fast around the bases. But at the end of the day, a catcher is a catcher. So he's still really good defensively. How many, he threw two guys out consecutively,
yeah, well
stealing bases the other
that's
day.
what I was trying to
He
say. Is
still
he
holds
still
value as a catcher.
well?
Like
Yeah,
that's still
hold on,
very
because that's
valuable.
what that I want to finish my thought here. That's what I was trying to say is he's still the same catcher he used to be. His pop time behind the plate, it's still phenomenal. But when I'm talking about the batting order, I'm talking about how he's performing as a hitter, and how he's performing as a hitter is not good enough to be batting cleanup. I don't care if it's
No, I'm
he's
not
really
saying he
good
should
for a
be batting
catcher.
cleanup. I just
I don't
said
care if he's good for a catcher. I need somebody who's good for a cleanup hitter in the
well,
cleanup
that's why I
spot.
said like when you're like when you're putting your catcher in that spot, like your team obviously isn't in the best position. So I feel like the Phillies are still trying to tweak
And then
things
you
out. But
have, and that's the thing too, because you have a guy like Castellanos who, I think he's off to a great start this season. Hit the huge
Castellanos should
grand
be batting
slam.
3 where Alec Bohm is, and Alec Bohm should be batting 5, and then JT should be batting down. That's what I'm saying is I'm more so
Well, then who would you
defending
put in the
JT.
cleanup?
No, I'm more so Kyle Schwarber. I'm more so defending JT in the sense of I was kind of talking as if like if you're trying to justify giving him another contract, I think it might actually be worth it depending on the price because he's still a great defensive catcher. And he wasn't even a catcher in college. You know what I mean? So like he doesn't have the like complete wear and tear on his body that like a normal catcher has
I
at
would
that time.
see
So
how Marchand performs throughout the season. to determine
But
if you
when we're
want to hang on
talking
to
about
JT or
catchers,
not.
when I just revisited something, at the time it didn't matter because JT was in his prime in 2022. We just traded Logan O'Hoppe for Brandon Marsh, and Logan O'Hoppe has 5 home runs and hit like 20 plus home runs last year, and is probably going to be one of the best catchers in the league, and is 25 years old. And if not, he's probably already a top 5 catcher in the league.
Yeah, that's the thing is like it stings about Ohape, but at the same time, I mean, he's been starting in LA ever since that trade. You know, what would we have done if we didn't trade him? Just make him
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
waste
but like
away
you could
AAA
have
this
found a
whole
way. Like,
time.
well, his
So I
bat
mean,
is almost
look,
the thing about him is his bat's almost good enough to be a DH. That's how good he is. So, I mean, his bat is almost good enough to you could have justified throwing him in a DH role or finding a way to use him in that type of sense, or just have a rotation with him and JT. But I mean, he's one of the best catchers in the league. So
okay,
we always talk
ditching
about
the
like how
AirPods
the Phillies kind of hoard their
audio.
prospects, and I guess that the Phillies hoarding their prospect in that sense. You know, you don't want to give up on guys like for the Luis Robert trade that we all talked about last year that could have happened, or different guys that they could have traded for. Like, there's an opportunity that you miss out on a guy that's one of your prospects and not holding on to him. But that's just a tougher situation to evaluate because, I mean, they had JT in his prime at the time, but he's a great, great player. So
He's a great player, but I want to see how Marshawn performs. If Marshawn hits well throughout the year as the backup catcher and looks good behind the dish, then it's time to move on from JT. Spend that money elsewhere in free agency, hopefully on the
I
bullpen.
really don't think they're going to do that.
I did want to go back though to we were talking about Kerkering. I've been wanting to go back to that. I just looked up his stats. It not as bad as it seems because he gave up the run. I think it was last night. Yeah, last night he gave up the run, and then the night before he gave up like a run or two, but those were not his runs that he gave up, so he wasn't credited for them. And really, he did do a solid job at kind of attempting to clean up that mess. So I mean, like I said, he's got great stuff. I mean, that fastball's terrific. That
Yeah, I wasn't trying to single
slider's
him out in any way.
super.
I'm just trying to say, like,
No,
like
I know, but what you
didn't
were,
go out and make crazy moves
hold on, 'cause
because
what I'm trying to say is, um, you were saying, the Phillies thought they could really lean on Kerkering, and I think they still can. I absolutely think they can. He's got great stuff. He's given up 1 earned run so far. His ERA is at 1.93. I think him and Alvarado are the two guys, and him and Alvarado are the two guys I think I really trust in that bullpen. I think I trust Matt Strahm to a certain extent. Most of the other guys I don't trust as well. Jose Ruiz is starting to impress me a bit more, but it just frustrates me that they got rid of everyone. But I do want to talk about the good though, and that's what I was getting into was Nick Castellanos. Great start to the season. He had that grand slam the other day. Bryce Harper is off to a good start yet again. Trey Turner is off to a very good start, I would say. He's hitting a higher average. He had his first home run. And then one guy who's quietly hitting well is Bryson Stott. He's batting 278 right now. He's been getting a lot of base hits.
what was your beef with Max Kepler? Because I mean, he's like, I don't like associate him with like doing the most production on the roster, so I kind of have like a different expectation for him. But I was impressed the way that he got around the bases the other night to score that run.
Well, yeah, that was nice, but I mean, his bat
Yeah,
has
but if they
gotten
have a
cold
guy
since
like
the
that,
first series of
like
the
if they
season.
have a guy like that showing traits to be able to do that, like in a big moment, like if he gets on base, showing that he can actually be a base threat, that just gives Topper more belief that he can play him in a certain situation. I mean, the Brandon Marsh situation has kind of spiraled out of control from that him being a locked in everyday guy to him just still struggling and being the exact same player year after year that he is and just being pretty good at what he does, but not improving on the things that he needs to work on for him to be not a platoon player anymore. So,
Well, I
I don't
mean,
know what's going
if
on with
we're
that
gonna call
situation.
out
I know
Brandon
Justin
Marsh for
Crawford.
his
Justin
level of
Crawford's playing
play,
AAA, isn't he?
I mean, if we're gonna call out him for his level of play, I mean, Max Kepler is a guy that going at the start of the season they looked at as a guy as an everyday starter, and he's also not hitting well at all. So we're gonna
Well,
call
yeah,
out
but he
Brandon.
hasn't been not Johan Rojas. Brandon Marsh has been on the roster for how many years, and he was the guy that we just talked about. They traded for and ended up trading a superstar for. So, I mean, I don't like the
Yeah,
expectations on
no, no.
him.
Listen, I'm not happy with Brandon Marsh's level of play either, but I'm also not happy with Max Kepler's level of play. I don't care if like, oh, he's not like a platoon guy, you know. That's
Well,
like,
when was
oh,
the
well,
last time?
for what
When
he
was the
is,
last
for
time?
what he is, he's doing all right with his job. It's like, no, if they looked at him as a starter and he's hitting this poorly, listen, this is all I was saying was this is what I expect out of him going into the season. And after the first year, I was like, oh wait, maybe I was wrong about Max Kepler. It turns out I wasn't. So that's kind of the point I'm making there.
Well, I kind of thought like it wouldn't be a lockdown spot. And that's just the biggest question mark
I like
year in
listen,
year
if
out is the
Edmundo
two outfield
Sosa
spots.
keeps hitting well, if Edmundo Sosa keeps hitting well, I think the best way to move forward is when facing lefties, Sosa and Rojas get the start in the outfield, and then against righties, Edmundo Sosa just fills in for Bohm and Stott whenever they need a day off. So I think that's the best avenue. Just shifting over to Edmundo Sosa now, I think that's the best avenue as long as he keeps hitting well. I think that's the best avenue to give him more games, more starts. Is if you always have him as the left fielder against lefties, and then even against righties, just
Well, you know what
mix
the
him
most
around the
underrated part
infield.
about Edmundo Sosa was he played 104 games for the Phillies in 2023. So, I mean, he had a lot of playing time. It's not like a
I think
seven.
he can get up to like 120, 130 with that method. And then even have him fill in for Harper too by putting Bohm at first and Sosa at third, which is what they've done before. So you can have him fill in for Stott, Bohm, Harper,
He was
even
the
Trey
ultimate utility
Turner,
player. He was like,
and then have him start in left field anytime they face a
well, wasn't
lefty.
that like that's kind of like what Tommy Edman used to do, play the infield and the outfield when he was with the Cardinals. Then he got traded to the Dodgers, and he's like a big part of what the Dodgers do now. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like guys like that could progress into a bigger role than they're in right now. But I mean, when you with the Brandon Marsh situation, talking about it, I mean, Justin Crawford's playing AAA this year and has started off in AAA. And I mean, he's played 10 games, 46 at bats, and he has a 296 batting average. So he's batted a high ass average. His career batting average in the Phillies organization is 315 at every
Yeah.
level.
I
So I
would
mean,
like to see
he
him
plays
get the call
terrific
up
defense.
eventually.
He's a better outfielder than Johan Rojas
Yeah,
defensively.
no, Justin Crawford is the
Oh, he's
future
going to
in
be.
center field. It
Do you,
just
I
depends
think
on
there's a
when he's
chance he
ready.
comes up this year. I think there's an
I
actual
and you know
chance
what?
he comes up this
I
year.
I think
When was the
I
last
think
time we brought a guy along like that? I mean, Kirkring's really the only homegrown, really, really young guy that's on the roster that was anointed, to this level and that is playing a role
yeah.
for the team.
I
So.
um I I think Crawford is the future in center field. And I think if Bohm keeps playing the way he's playing, Aiden Miller is the future at third base. So it'd be
Yeah, well,
interesting to
that's
see how
also
those.
one thing is like you could get rid of Boom at the trade deadline if things still go poorly. I mean, Boom, the last 2 years, you could count on him knocking runs in with the high RBI totals. And he was batting over 300. I think it was like over 300 last year, and the year before was like 344 or like something crazy high with runners in scoring position. He's batting like 1 for 12 or 1 for 13 to start the season in those spots. And the pop out to end the game the other day. Was it the pop out or the strikeout? And then you had the other big moment pop out. So, I mean, he's just struggled in big moments and he's still
And that's
batting
the other
high
thing
in the
too.
batting order. So, I mean, with JT, I don't know if they're developing an issue with right-handed bats because, I mean, Trey's doing his thing at the top of the lineup now as expected. I mean, I always have belief in Trey
Well,
turning
and
the ball for
Sosa's
the most
doing
part.
well.
And Sosa
The,
does his thing, but with the righty bats, like they have
and Constant.
JT and Boom struggling, and they're still putting them in between those 3 to 5 spots that are like in protection of Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber. So I feel
Yeah,
like they really need to sort
Harper
that out.
definitely needs better protection. The one thing I do want to say about Alec Boehm before I want to bring up my next Phillies topic is I think like I think everybody is being a little too extreme about Bohm. Like
I
we're
do too.
we're a week into the season, you know. Like I don't think this early in the season it's like good to evaluate how players are performing so far. But I mean, things. I mean, come on, you can have a player that hits like shit going into the All-Star break and then they perform out of this world following it, you know, or vice versa. And so especially just like the first week or two of the season, it's like let's give him a little more time to see if he can pick it back up. I mean, he was an all-star last year for crying out loud, although he didn't play well at all post all-star break. But I mean, you have to look at what he did that first half of the year last season and see if he can start doing it again. Let's not just
Yeah, the
go a
thing
week
about
or
it for
two into
me
the
is
season and be like, oh, he stinks, get him out of here.
I think they're a worse
Okay,
team.
let's see if he can pick it back up.
I think they're definitely a worse team without him because I feel like they're not going to get the comparable value back in return for him. So I feel like they just kind of got to ride it out. Like people talking about, I would trade him for a relief pitcher right now. I think you're crazy.
Well,
For talking
who's gonna? Uh,
like, I would
and
not trade him for a relief
the other
pitcher.
thing too is Sosa, right? It's like what I just said was if Sosa keeps hitting this well, this is what you need to do with him, right? Key thing is there, as I said, if he keeps hitting this well, because that's the flip side of the coin, right? Is you look at Sosa's numbers the past 2 years in Philly, he's batted around 250. You know, he's done some great work as a utility player, but 250 is nothing out of this world. If he was the everyday starter and he was batting 250 each season, people would be complaining about him as well, right? So, although he's off to a hot start this season, he might very well come down to earth eventually and end up being a 250 hitter again this year. And then it's like, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing is like people are talking about like, oh, trade Bohm and have Sosa start every day at third. It's like you could end up doing that now, and then Sosa just also goes back down to earth because it's a 162 game season. There are trends. It's like you know there are peaks and valleys of it all. So
I don't
this
think
early into the
I think
season,
Edmundo Sosa has proven himself to like he's not going to go all the way down to like being like a 220 hitter. But if you
right?
look at some of the other decisions that they've made in the past, like Reese Hoskins has been absolutely horrible this year. I mean, he's batting like 150 or something crazy. And the Brewers exploded last night for a bunch of runs, but their offense has been batting pretty poor. There's a lot of poor offensive performances going around the league. Did you see? I think the Reds were like put themselves like I thought someone said it was the first time in MLB history, but then I saw there was multiple teams that did it. But the Reds, I think it was last week, lost 3 consecutive games, 1-0. So
I
there's a
did
lot
see
of
that.
teams
Yeah, I
like,
did see
there's a
that.
lot of teams out there struggling, tremendously with offense. I mean, like you said,
Well,
the pitching evolution, the pitching is really good, but obviously when you get in a matchup, like, I just feel like right now what the Phillies are going against, because the Dodgers series that happened last week, as much as I love that they won that series, I'm always so critical of like guys missing out of the lineup. And when you have the World Series MVP not playing in the lineup, you know what I mean? It's a tough evaluation for exactly like I feel like that's a whole different series if Freddie Freeman is playing in that series. And also, I think Mookie Betts is still not right. I mean, he's still like 150 pounds. So when he actually gains all his weight back, he's going to be even a better player, but he's still performing. But it was definitely a good series win. But I feel like right now, the test that they're getting from the Braves, even with Ronald Acuna out of the lineup, is a pretty good test. But that just shows like the levels could crank up more because like this series is neck and neck. Like as we're talking about inning for inning, like it's like you both teams got to be locked in. They're like giving up the lead each inning, like up and down. So I
yeah,
feel
it's been two
this is
very
a true test,
entertaining
but this
games.
also kind of shows that they might need another, high end player because when you add Ronald Acuna back into the mix of what's going on with the Braves, when they start catching steam, I think they're going to start going on a hell of a run, in my opinion. Like I agree with what you were saying, like preseason, but I was more so hesitant on the start of the season for them because they're missing their catcher and they're missing their best player. But right now, the way that they're performing against the Phillies, like I feel a little threatened about the Braves. And I've always said, how many years in a row are they going to beat the Braves in the playoffs? You know what I mean? Like it's you can't
Well, that's the
expect
thing. The Braves have
to
kind of
beat
had our
them
number in
every
the
year.
regular season. We've had their number in the postseason. We faced them again tonight with Jesus Luzardo on the mound, who for the final thing I want to talk about with the Phillies, that is one of two pitchers I want to talk about right now. Because although their other two acquisitions, Jordan Romano and Max Kepler, aren't looking the best at the moment. Jesus Luzardo has been lights out on the mound. He's looked really, really good. But then also a guy who, although he hasn't given up a run yet, I would say Jesus Luzardo has looked even better. But I mean, Taijuan Walker, who would have thought we'd see this from him? 2 starts, 10 and 2/3 innings pitched total, and not a run given up. It's shocking to me, to say the
Just
least.
don't strain him too much. You know what I mean? Like he can give you like he's not the thing about him is like he's like not that good, but he's above average. It's just like a little bit above average, but like he's decent.
Well,
Like the
right now
turn,
he's performing above
like he
average. I
can give you
wouldn't
4 good innings, but
call
the
him
thing is
above
like
average in
yeah, but the
general.
thing
He
is
had
with
a
him is like
7 ERA last year.
he's
7.
like he's the type of guy where you microwave food again and you got to know the exact time that you got to take it out of the microwave. You can't leave it in there for too long. You just can't. Like it might be a 48-second microwave experience, you know what I mean? Like that he might give you 3 to 4 innings and
This
then
is a wild
you just
analogy.
got to kind of see like, oh no, I just sense the floodgates are going to open, get them out of there. But
But
then again, the bullpen, we don't have reliable bullpen for where if we get caught in a playoff series, like in the 3rd inning and we get smashed for 5 or 6 runs and that pitcher has to come out, like we'd be in a tough spot. So that's where they're going to have to develop one of these guys from the starting rotation. They have 7 starters now that are in the, or 6 starter level guys, 7 with 8, Andrew Painter coming up, but he's going to be on a limited pitch count. But of those 7 guys, somebody's going to have to be able to long relieve out of
and
the
that's what I
bullpen.
wanted to bring up, because you just
And that
had
guy's
Ranger
Ranger.
Suarez pitch a simulated game or he not simulated game. I think he had an actual start in Clearwater. So with Ranger Suarez coming back and Taijuan Walker miraculously pitching well, it does become a bit of a decision. I think you make it a 6-man rotation and see if Walker can continue to pitch well. And if he has one bad outing, you move him to the bullpen and you put it back to a 5-man rotation. But it is a bit of a decision now with Ranger Suarez coming back.
Well, I think come playoff time, I mean, they're not going to be using all 5 guys.
Well, no, I'm talking about for the rest of. I'm talking about for the regular season.
Well,
The
I'm talking more so
playoffs are
playoff
so
time.
far away. I mean, why even?
Yeah, I feel like right now, if there's like betting odds out there, like it'd be like plus 180 for Taijuan Walker to make the playoff roster, but it could happen. I mean, he was left off it before and he was real salty about it. So,
Well,
but
deservingly so.
yeah, deservingly so. But
He
I
had a
mean,
7 ERA.
but if
He had a
he's able to
7
give you,
ERA. Yeah, no,
but
you're not coming with us to the playoffs, buddy.
But if he pitches like at a decent rate for the rest of the season and he can you can get the stamina of 2 to possibly 3 decent innings from him in a playoff spot, I mean, you have to have that in the value of a long reliever for your bullpen, or Ranger Suarez, who did that to begin when the Phillies got back to the playoffs in 2022. That was the role that he was in. So I mean, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, I mean, is kind of getting teed off a little bit. Zach Wheeler got teed off a
Nola's
little
off
bit,
to a
but
bad start. Wheeler,
Wheeler, I mean,
it's a shame
Wheeler's
because
Wheeler.
Wheeler could have had such a good outing the other night. But
I
I
know, but at
think
the end of the day, when he drops the Johan Rojas drops that pitch, drops the ball in the outfield, but also Zach Wheeler gave up a home run. That happened. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I
it
know,
is
but
what it is. But
it never should have got to that point. His
yeah, but
pitch count never
you could
should have
always say
gotten that
shoulda, coulda,
high. He had to
woulda.
face a
So
few extra batters because of it.
I
I
know.
think
I'm not
without
trying to.
that, he would have went on to have a great outing. But I
But
mean, the rest
that just shows you how talented the Braves are. You know what I mean? Like that
they
just
are
shows you
talented.
that
Yeah,
they're a legit team. They're legit.
they're not gonna stay as right now the record is what 2-9. I mean, they're not gonna stay a team, with this bad of a win percentage throughout the year. They're going to turn it around eventually. Hopefully not starting tonight. I would love to see the Phillies get their fourth straight series victory to start the season. And I would love to not lose a series to the Atlanta Braves. I feel confident with Jesus Luzardo on the mound. Have you heard Taijuan Walker's new nickname?
No, what is it?
Saiwan Walker.
No, I have. That's
It's a
outrageous.
great nickname. Great nickname. Saiwan Walker. I
I'm
love
gonna,
it.
we're this all this glamoring of and glazing of Taiwan Walker will be remembered and will be brought
Well,
back
that's the
because
thing. We have to do it
you trying to
now
bring it from the
because
dead
he's
about
not going
me.
to pitch well for much longer. So we got to give him his props now.
You tried to.
He goes.
He had decent outings before, and I tried to give him a little praise, and you were trying to act like he was my favorite player, and I was glazing him. But also, you haven't given me
I
my
made
props.
fun of you last year for saying some reinforcements are coming. Taijuan Walker is coming back from
I don't
injury,
even remember
and then he went
saying
on
that.
to
You'd have
throw a
to pull the
7
clip up.
ERA on the season.
You'd
That's
have to pull the
what
clip.
I make
And
fun
I
of.
was also, I've also talked about Edmundo Sosa since he's been a Philly in a gigantic light. And look at the season.
Well,
that he's
no,
having.
I've liked Edmundo Sosa this whole time myself. I'm quite fond of Edmundo Sosa. You know who is quite fond of Edmundo Sosa?
Zach Wheeler.
These bitches.
Yeah, you like that song that he
These
walks up
bitches
to?
love Sosa. Anyway, it's time for my meatball of the week. And you know what? I've already forgotten his name. We discussed him right before the show, but I mean, he's an umpire that no one's ever really heard of. Drew Breckenridge. Could be completely wrong. But anyway, this Joker is my meatball of the week because he got caught drinking before the game, before one of his games as an umpire. And what's funny is
day games, so it was 10 a.m.
Day games. Yeah, he was drinking Hennessy.
Casino, right?
What's that?
It was a casino, right? Wasn't it a Yankees game too? So you're like talking. Was it a Yankees game?
I don't know, but he was
If it
drinking
was a
Hennessy
Yankees
before
game,
the
which
game.
I feel like I heard it was a Yankees game, which would mean that like the most high profile team in the league in the history of the league is that happened to. You know what I mean? So that like makes it
It's funny.
weird.
But what is funny though is you sent me the report on Instagram. I went to Twitter to fact check it. I only saw one other report mentioning on Twitter, but what I did see is just footage of him being really bad at his job during games. Like I saw one clip, I think it was John Boy posted it. He was counting the balls and strikes on his fingers, and another one was just him getting a bunch of balls and strikes incorrect. The behaviors of a drunk man, especially if you're an umpire counting balls and strikes on your fingers. So it definitely seems as if he was drunk for these games. So not sure if this name is correct. Drew Breckenridge, you are my meatball of the week.
How do you feel about a drunk umpire? Like, because the possibility of him, swaying calls to one side might happen. So that might be in your favor, but you're playing a probability game of if the calls get swayed into your favor.
So you're saying a drunk
be,
umpire, but if said drunk umpire was trying to favor one team over the other.
Yeah, but like there's no guarantee which team he would favor, but you just got to risk it as in like, you know what I mean? The drunk umpire out there possibly could be giving your team good calls.
I think it's like if you're playing MLB The Show and you change the umpire settings to make sure to like how you can go from 100% correct
sliders
to realistic to like completely out of sorts. So it's like living on it might balance itself out. You know what I mean? You might end up getting a crucial walk to load the bases, or you might end up striking out looking.
What's the worst possible call in sports that could happen? Like which sport is the most fatal referee flaw that could happen? Like, do you think it's in the NFL, the MLB?
I think it's a bad PI call. I think it's a bad PI call or a bad holding call.
I don't know. There's also if you watch MMA and UFC, there's some
listen. A bad defensive holding call costed us a Super Bowl. All right.
Yeah, the Saints. Line. What about the
Saints? And the Saints? Yeah, I mean that was really bad. That was really bad.
A crazy one.
Another really bad one was the Hail Mary. I feel like football is.
Remember the Cowboys won that game versus the Lions in the playoffs in Dallas because they had the holding call that didn't get called. on
No, I
Detroit. They were
don't remember
holding
that.
Detroit's like tight end like up the seam, I think, to end the game, and they didn't call it, and it was in Dallas. That was another horrific call.
I don't
So
recall it, but that
they
does sound
also were on
familiar.
that.
Anyway, let's get back to the tankathon. Okay. Um, we've had two hiccups in the tankathon. Two big hiccups in terms of leapfrogging to the 4 seed in terms of draft lottery. Um, needed the Pelicans to beat the Nets, because that's only one of like two bad teams they had left on the schedule. And they won that game. So then it was like, this isn't looking too good in terms of leapfrogging. And then the Sixers won. They won a game. So that pretty much ends their hopes for getting the
I mean,
fourth worst
what
record.
at this point, it hasn't even like for them to be this close in the lottery, they still have won like 22 games, which is pretty crazy. You know what I mean? Like
24.
normal,
They have
like
24
yeah,
wins.
like it's like remember we were like 9 to 10 game territory. Like that was just on a whole nother level. So I mean, Jeff Dalton did his
Well,
thing yesterday.
this was a late
Bro,
start
they
to this.
lost 12 games in a row. Like what?
I
How
know.
many games in
Listen,
a row do
for
you think they
how
can
late
lose?
they
Like
started tanking, they've done a phenomenal job tanking. They only started tanking like halfway through the season. If they were tanking like this the whole season, they would have like 8 wins right now.
do you think they shut Maxi? Like, how legitimate do you think the Maxi injuries are? Like, he's dealing with the back and he's dealing
It's
with
a fucking
the
maxi injury.
tendon in the finger
I
that
thought
they
it was
said.
so funny. I saw the other day, it was like breaking news. Tyrese Maxey has been shut down for the rest of the season. It's like I thought that has been a thing. Like we haven't seen him
Well,
in
he tried to
over a
ramp it
month.
back up, they said, and then like the tendon flared up again. But I mean,
Oh, come on. Yeah,
when you're
that's a
using the
bunch of
excuse of
nonsense.
like a finger injury, I don't want to accuse anybody of anything.
That's a bunch of nonsense. Maxey's completely fine. They're just trying to tank their
But with the
hardest.
trend of the NBA right now, with all these coaches, I mean, we just saw two top 5 teams in the West fire their coaches right before the playoffs started. Two prominent coaches that could potentially be Sixers coaches, and I think Taylor Jenkins, when he got dismissed by Memphis, he actually was favored to go to the Sixers, and they still have a coach, Nick Nurse, under contract, but I think Nick Nurse is kind of going to get scapegoat fired. And when I say that, I don't think Nick Nurse has done the greatest job this season, but with all the factors going on, I just feel like he's going to receive all the blame, and Daryl Morey's going to walk away, and
I would like to hang
fight
on to
clean.
Nick Nurse for one more year to see how he does, with everyone back healthy and hopefully
I wasn't
having
the biggest Nick Nurse
top.
guy. Like before he became the Sixers coach, I like what he's done. I think he's a decent coach. I just think this year is like a really hard way to judge a guy. I mean, with all the factors that's going on with the Sixers roster, I mean, the 3 best players that he's supposed to be able to rely on for all the offensive production are just not playing. So, what do you expect from the dude? But
Yeah. And that's the thing. You'll get everyone back healthy next year. You hopefully hold on to
not
Quentin
even
Grimes.
3. I just forgot about it. 4 because Jared McCain's hurt too. So it's the 4. I mean, Jared McCain was kind of unexpected, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's 4
But
top
that's the
level
thing.
guys. So.
Everyone was hurt this year. You get everybody back healthy next year. You hopefully hold on to Quentin Grimes and he plays well next year. You hopefully keep your pick, which now, it's more of like a 50-50 shot if they keep their pick or not. So you hopefully add a top 5 pick into the mix. And speaking of that, actually, real quick, I do want to say, speaking of head coaches getting fired, this is the Paisan Sports podcast, so we got to bring this up. We've lost a Paisan in the city. We gained one in the Eagles offseason in Kevin Patullo, but we've lost John Tortorella. A sad day for the Paisan Sports podcast as there's one less Paisan in the city. Remember when we had 3 Italian head coaches? Joe Girardi, John Tortorella, and Nick Sirianni. I never really liked Joe Girardi, but I did like having 3 Italian head coaches. And now we're down to just one. But we do have one hell of a group of Paisans in that coaching staff. So that's good at least. So I did want to make a quick mention of that.
You just made history by doing that. You know, it took us 93 episodes to make the first mention of the Flyers on the podcast. 93 episodes. I think before I didn't even say the Flyers name, but I asked you the question of the 4 major teams. I might have said, and the Flyers on their 2010 run with the Chicago Blackhawks, but that might have been the only reference ever made of the Flyers
Yeah,
on this podcast ever. I don't even think we've said
Want to know
Utah,
how much I
Ranger, and
don't
Giants.
pay attention to the Flyers? I was watching the Phillies last night when they took a 3-2 lead. They mentioned that at the same exact time the Flyers took a 3-2 lead, and I saw they ended up winning like 8-5 or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? And I actually looked at the box score and I said, holy shit, Sean Couturier is still on the Flyers. I had no idea. So that shows you how much I pay attention to them.
The
But
yeah, I
anyway,
mean, it's been a tough go for the winter Philadelphia sports team. So, and the Flyers fans love to hate on the Sixers in general, so they kind of just like beat down on them. But I mean, I feel like that's a little unnecessary. I root for the Flyers. I more so, I'll admit, would be like bandwagon fanish. My dad is like a huge hockey guy, so he actually watches the Flyers like every night. But I'm not a big hockey guy at
you know
all.
what?
So.
I'm more
But I do
invested.
enjoy it like at times, but it's kind of
I'm
like a
more
select
invested
taste.
in Wrexham than the Flyers.
Yeah, well,
Which is which is a Philly
NBA.
owned team technically.
I'm an
Um,
NFL, NBA, MLB, UFC guy through and through, or just MMA in general. So that's
I would
what I do through and through.
classify myself as NFL, NBA, MLB, WWE, and some soccer. I don't really care much for hockey, but anyway, going back to the Sixers, going back to the possibility of them adding a top 5 pick to the roster. Likely, they're not getting Cooper Flag. There's a 10% chance they do get Cooper
Did you
Flag, and
watch him throughout the tournament? How good he is! Like it's like ridiculous, like the
yeah,
level that he's on. He's
they're
like he's he's like 6'9", athletic, but like there's like a trait to him that like makes you feel like he's Luca, but then you watch him play and then he's just like it's probably because he's white, but there's a trait to him that makes you like try and compare him to Luca, and then you just realize like no, he's like 10 times. He's not technically as I don't know because the skill is almost like the skill is right
he
there with
is
Luka's.
far
He's
he is
so
far
athletic
more
though. Like
athletic
he's
than
so
a
much
white
more
guy.
athletic than Luca though.
He
That's what's
does not
crazy.
have the athleticism of a white man. Which is funny because if the Sixers were to, win the lottery and get Cooper Flag, that would just be the second white boy Cooper in the city that not only is a white athlete named Cooper who's very good, but is also way more athletic than all other white people. You know what I mean? Like
I think we said this on the last podcast, but just like talked about how funny it was that LeBron's balling with like 2 white dudes to end his career at age 40, and he's like balling right now, and like that's like they're close to a championship. Like they actually have pretty good chances in the West right now, heading into the playoffs, and he's just got Austin Reeves and Luca just balling with them, and like it's just funny to see that going on. But I mean, yeah, Cooper Flag's crazy, but the 2 Rutgers kids are also really good, but they're not. I mean,
well,
Cooper Flag,
that
like
is what
I was with
I
people that
wanted
were
to
trying to
talk about.
downplay Cooper
Hold on, because
Flag, and
that
they were
is
trying to
what I
say
wanted to
Cooper
talk
Flag's
about.
not good and this, that, the other. I was with people this weekend watching the game. I was actually in New Orleans for my friend's bachelor party, and they were all trying to say Cooper Flag's not that good. And I was like, bro, are you watching the same stream that I'm
That's
watching?
insane.
Like,
But that is what I wanted to talk about. If they, obviously don't end up getting Cooper Flag, I think there is a real possibility to get the next best option, which is a guy I would be thrilled if the Sixers were able to draft him, and that is Ace Bailey. I think
all
he's
right, let's go
everything
through it
the
real quick because
Sixers
I had a
roster
crazy
needs.
idea generate into my brain real quick. So, pull up the top 5 right now and like let's look at the likeliness of the top 5, like how it will look to play out. So, we'll ballpark where the Sixers could land realistically, and then I'm going to pitch something to you that maybe you haven't thought about yet.
All right, let me try and pull up a list of NBA top 5 draft prospects. Okay, so you got Cooper Flag.
No. Top 5 like teams that are going to be picking in the top 5.
Okay, let me pull that
Like
up
what
as
the
well then.
likeliness, yeah, the current likeliness of like
Okay,
the
so at all tied with 14% chance, you have Washington, Utah, and Charlotte. Then fourth with 12.5% chance, you have New Orleans. And then fifth at 10.5%, you have your Philadelphia 76ers, who are now guaranteed to not slip past
so
5.
Utah, Charlotte, and Washington. I mean, so you land in the top 5, 4 or 5-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Joel Embiid's in the situation that he's in right now.
Mm-hmm.
You take that 4th or 5th overall pick. with Joel Embiid to trade for Cooper Flag, do you do it?
No. No.
You don't
Not
think
doing it.
so? He's 18 years old. He just turned 18, like literally.
Yeah.
He's
Now
he
that
was
I've
playing
thought
as
about it for
17 for the
5
entire
seconds,
season. He
yeah.
just turned 18. Just turned
Yeah,
18.
now that I've had all but 5 seconds to think about it, I would trade Embiid to get Cooper Flag.
I
Definitely.
mean, if you could find a scam for like the 4th or 5th pick, or somehow you land the 3rd pick and then trade Paul George, and then, dude, for Cooper Flag, I mean,
If you could somehow
but
miraculously
Paul
beat
George costs
George
you.
to
Paul
trade him,
George for
it would
Cooper
be a
Flag. Paul
steal.
George would probably cost you. It'd probably be the 3rd. Say you land the 3rd pick, you could maybe get away with Cooper Flag to get him. You would Paul George 3rd pick, and then it would probably be Jared McCain. And I probably would still do that, honestly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I like
It would be tough,
McCain,
but
but
I would
if it
still do
means
that.
Cooper Flag, then sorry, McCain, you're out of here. Anyway, though, speaking of draft talk, I do want to bring up something that I heard on the radio yesterday. They were talking about, the Eagles in the first round, and they were talking about possibly drafting a wide receiver in the first round. Which they brought up one guy specifically. I forget his name, but he's like your prototypical
He's not going
elite
to be there. I
slot
don't know why everybody's
receiver.
talking about like the league's going to let a 4-2 something wide receiver fall. I mean, you saw Xavier Worthy fall to the Chiefs, and I mean,
Well,
he
and that's
tore
the
up
thing.
the
Even if
Super
he
Bowl.
does, I would not draft him in the first round because the Eagles simply do not throw out of the slot. If you can't spend a first round pick on a wide receiver that isn't going to see
Yeah,
that
but it
many
could be a
targets,
lot of
I think
people.
it's
A lot of
totally
people are
silly.
looking at the justification of if you lose Dallas Goedert and you replace him with a lower end tight end, because it's going to be hard to replace the talent level of Dallas Goedert unless you draft one of these
They
high
didn't even
tight ends,
throw to
which
the
I'm
tight
down to
end
do.
position that much this past season.
I mean, Dallas Goedert
Look,
was
the bread and butter
Dallas Goedert
of
was
the
the 3rd
offense
leading
is the
receiver.
run game with Saquon and throwing the ball outside the numbers to A.J. Brown and
Dallas
Devontae Smith.
Goedert was the 3rd leading receiver in the entire playoffs.
Was he really?
Yeah.
That doesn't even sound right, but hey.
He was going off. I mean, he was literally getting high volume the entire playoffs. He was the safety blanket. He made the huge triple stiff arm play. I mean, he was making plays
That was
all
a
over
big
the
play.
field, and he's a
That was
great
a big
blocker
play.
too. So I mean, I don't even know why we're in the territory that they're like the discussion of Dallas Goedert moving on from the Eagles right now, because I feel like at worst come to worst, you don't need to like pry something out of every exact situation. Like there's certain situations where you just got to let them play out, and it's more of a benefit to him being on the roster than you maybe picking up a 3rd round pick in the future. As great as that sounds, I mean, I'll take another year of Dallas Goedert and then being able to relook, unless they're actually looking at drafting one of these tight ends high. Like I would draft the Michigan guy if he drops, but I don't think he's going to drop that far. And I actually saw Colston Loveland going before Tyler Warren in a couple mock drafts, which
I
kind of
saw mock drafts that don't even feature Tyler Warren in the first round. If Tyler Warren falls to the Eagles, I would
he's not
take
going
him.
to. Did you see the report about Tyler Warren? Is like there's teams not even setting up interviews with him because they already checked the boxes on him. There's like all the teams in the top drafting in the top aren't even interviewing him because they already did all their homework, and they're like, we already know he's really good, so we're not going to waste our time. You know what I mean? That's what they're saying.
Speaking of that though, one thing I've noticed that I think is pretty funny is the whole storyline with like Shedeur Sanders going into the draft feels so similar to his father, of just like this cocky, super athletic guy going into the draft, and people are like now starting to question him, and then he's just going to end up coming into the league and balling out probably. I think
so?
that's yeah, I think so.
I think he has to be in the right situation, but I think the best thing that could possibly happen for him is maybe slipping in the draft to a better team. Like a team like the Rams.
I heard
maybe like a
somebody
team like that.
mention I heard somebody mention the possibility of the Steelers trading up and getting him. That is best case scenario for Shedeur Sanders.
I don't know.
Him,
The Steelers offensive line is always trash though. And the run game never gets supported because their offensive line isn't good. So he's not like the thing about him in college was the thing holding him back was Colorado's offensive line was bad. So he was just like always
but
taking
look
sacks
at it like this.
from behind another offensive lineman like that.
Look at how bad Russell Wilson was in Denver and how much better he played in Pittsburgh. Look at how bad Justin Fields was in Chicago and look at how much better he played, but I think it was 3 or 4 starts in Pittsburgh, maybe a little more, somewhere around that number. I mean, you could say on paper, Pittsburgh isn't the best situation for a quarterback, but I mean, it ended up being a much better situation for 2 different quarterbacks this past season than where they previously played. And plus, it's a team that, although they haven't won anything in over a decade, they're a team that doesn't have a losing culture. I can't say they're a team that has a winning culture, but they're a team that doesn't have a losing culture.
Yeah, but as a fan, and as an organization, how do you feel about that just floating around in no man's land for how long? Like you're literally
to me, it would feel
they
like
haven't won a playoff game in forever. Remember the year that they got
I think it's the NFL equivalent to the Andre Iguodala era in Philly. That's what it seems like to me. It's just like
no, it's worse than that because like they've had seasons where I was just about to point it out. What they started off 11-0 the one year, and they lose to the Browns and give up 28 points in the first quarter to the Browns in the playoffs. When the Browns hadn't won like a playoff game in forever, that was one of the craziest things ever. So
Chase Claypool, I got too cocky, and then they ended up playing like shit.
Listen, I'm a Notre Dame guy, and I don't even rep Chase Claypool, so that just kind of is what you need to know about him.
I feel like Pittsburgh just constantly brings in wide receivers that are just the worst. Like you have Antonio Brown, who was normal for a while, and then he just ends up becoming like the worst possible dude out there. Then you had Juju Smith-Schuster.
I don't know. I listened to Antonio Brown is still I don't know what's up with him because I listened to a podcast where he was like locked in and like sounded completely normal and like actually was talking about things that made a lot of sense and like different like business ventures and all that type of stuff. So, I mean, I feel like part of it's an act and he just kind of plays into it. But then again, with Antonio Brown, I mean, he was also like iconically good, like legendary.
Well, no, I'm talking about personality-wise, right?
No, so I know. I'm just saying as a player,
Antonio Brown,
like he never gets
and
the
then
credit
you have
that he
Juju
deserves.
Smith-Schuster, and at first, the whole thing with Juju Smith-Schuster was like Antonio Brown's the worst. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's a quiet young guy. We like this guy. This is how a star wide receiver should behave. And then Juju Smith-Schuster just turned into the worst possible guy, especially when he went to Kansas City. And
it's the worst ever. Like when you say his name, I just think of Corvette, that song when he used to do that dance, the TikTok.
Yeah, with the ball jet like that. And then
Yo, what was going on right there? Dante Claypool,
and then and Chase Claypool, just absolutely awful. And
you must have been watching his videos because you had decent technique on that, so you must have been watching.
All right, whatever. And then you end up with George Pickens, who was just another character. I mean, personality-wise, I prefer George Pickens over those other 3 guys, but it's like none of their star wide receivers are ever just normal.
Listen, to me, I grew up a Ravens fan like since the age of 10. Obviously, I'm way bigger of an Eagles fan, but I had connections to the Ravens, so I rooted for them, and I still on the low root for them a little bit. So I've hated the Steelers almost on the same level as much as I hate the Cowboys. So that just shows you I'm happy with the result of them floating around in no man's land right now. So
I've always hated this
because I still think Aaron Rodgers is not Aaron Rodgers, but like could be 30 touchdowns, 8 picks like he did last year and like be decent in a certain situation. But like that doesn't even threaten me for him signing with the Steelers. I don't see a threatening thing. And I see a lot of Steelers fans kind of imploding right now. They're talking about if you're not signing Aaron Rodgers and we're running with Mason Rudolph and like a first round quarterback like Shador that's not ready, then trade TJ Watt. So if TJ Watt hits the trade block, I feel like that's a move that Howie Roseman would not pass up. That's a move that would not be pass upable.
I want to say, well, yeah, I mean, obviously, but I do want to say I've also always hated the Steelers just because they have so many bandwagon fans. Like I've met so many Steelers fans over the years that are not from Pittsburgh, not from the area. they root for the Steelers because of how good
Bro,
they
the
were.
Cowboys of the AFC. It's the exact
Yeah,
same.
pretty much. And so for that reason, I've always hated the Steelers, and I've just
We would
been
probably
dying.
we would
Wait,
probably feel that way.
hold on. I've just been dying to see them have a losing season. Just give me one losing season. I do think it's quite funny that they've been floating around mediocrity for so long now. I think that is satisfying enough in itself. But I just want to see them have a losing season finally. I
Yeah,
can't
but
see.
I feel like the thing is, like, to us, that's kind of like the build-up hatred that we have for the 49ers too, is because like the 49ers are also like low-key America's team that everybody rooted for with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and all those guys back in the day. So that's like on
I
top
only
of
have
them being
hatred for the 49ers because of how much they
no,
bitched
but I'm
after
saying
they
on top
beat them
that's
in the
that
NFC
that's like
Championship.
low key in the bottom dirt of our hatred on top of like the rivalry that they have with the Eagles low key for being like two teams that have competed for the NFC title numerous times and have just been the most relevant NFC teams that there's been. And I feel like the Raiders for people growing up too, there was a bunch of bandwagon Raiders fans from all over too. That's probably why, but like they're so mediocre and irrelevant that like when they dip off, they like drop, like they'll have a good couple seasons with talent on the roster and then like everyone's gone and they're one of the worst teams in the league again, like out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Here, this is quite random now, but there's something I was thinking about recently with the Dallas Cowboys and how they haven't won in 30 years, and they're still looked at like right now they're looked at as a team that is in playoff contention every year. They used to be great. They still have some notoriety to them. It's still like even though it was 30 years ago and they get made fun of a lot because, they haven't won since then. They're still often remembered as a team with 5 rings. But on the flip side in baseball, there's a team with a very good amount of rings that a lot of people don't even realize they have as many rings as they do because it's been so long since they've won. And they've spent most of their time since then not even being a team in contention every year. They were in contention for a while. But during like a 10-year stretch of time, probably less, more like 5 years. And now, their rings are such a distant memory. People don't even know about them. And
I'm
I'm
trying to
wondering how
predict what you're
long.
about to say right now, and I think I have mapped it down to one team, but I don't know if I'm correct or not.
Take a stab at it.
I feel like it's wrong, but there's something telling me that you're talking about the Cardinals.
I'm not talking about the Cardinals.
But that fits the
Because
description of what
no,
we're
they
talking
they
about.
won in like 2011. Um,
Yeah,
I'll
but
get
they've been
to.
like I mean, I guess they were like decent with Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, but like they're not even close to the level that they were on like when we were
No, they're
growing up.
not. But their rings are still recent enough. I'll reveal the team in a second. The thing I'm getting to is, I wonder how much longer the Cowboys, if they continue to not win, will their rings become a distant memory like the team I'm mentioning. I think 10 to 15 more years, maybe even 20. Because right now they're held at a much higher standard and they're the most valuable team in sports compared to this other team, which is probably at this point the most invaluable team in sports. I'm talking about the Oakland Athletics. That's what I'm talking about. Like the Oakland Athletics, I mean, I think their last ring was in like the 70s, maybe the 80s. I want to say the late 70s. They won most of them all the way back in like the 20s and 30s, back when they were in Philly, and then they've won a few in Oakland. But I do wonder, like, if the Cowboys go like another 20 years without winning a ring, are they going to like really become the Athletics of the NFL?
Well, that was
Or
like what the Red Sox when they won in like when was the Red Sox series? Was it '06 that they won? This Red
oh,
Sox.
oh 04. They won
Oh,
in 04, oh
that was like
07,
that snaps like how long of
2013.
a record for them, and they're one of the most iconic franchises. That was the biggest rivalry in baseball between the
That's a
Yankees,
good point.
and
Yeah,
that was
the
like
Red
the
Sox
height
went a
of the
long
rivalry.
time
The
without
Red
winning.
Sox. That was when didn't Pedro throw down with a pitching coach or something, or some coach like Pedro threw some old coach to the ground in that series back in the day, Pedro Martinez. So,
Maybe.
but yeah, well, no, but we're talking about that. That's I forgot where I was going to go with it. I was going to bring something up about. Well, I mean, the Cowboys, like, yeah, it's been a really long time, and their relevance. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the NFC East actually is the only division in the NFL that has multiple Super Bowl championships with all four teams. So, I mean, they have the
Yeah.
notoriety of that. Oh, I was talking about in the spurts. Like, I was going to compare the spurts of championships, like UCLA basketball from what 1960, like late 1960s and 1975, won like 5, 6, 7 straight championships in a row in college basketball. When was the last time UCLA basketball was like ranked in the top 5, top 10 of you know what I mean? That's happened for a while. The Patriots stink right now, and they obviously were dominating the entire NFL forever. The Chiefs are still in their prime. The Eagles have won 2 Super Bowls in 7 years. I mean, the 49ers have been getting to the Super Bowl, but they're in a drought themselves. So, I
I
mean,
think it's fine with the 49ers, man.
the Giants won.
They've gone to what, 3 Super Bowls
But
since
if you look at a team
2012,
that
and they
has like
haven't
more
won.
rings in
I
the
think it's
NFL,
still
if
funny.
you look at a team that has more rings in the NFL kind of spaced out, like you had the Giants that won a ring in the 80s, or like they won a ring or two in the 80s, I believe. I know they won one, it could have been 2. And then they also won 2 in 2007, 2011, and now they're basement bottom of the entire NFL. You know what I mean? So you got to enjoy it while you can. I mean, there's some teams that have never even played in a Super Bowl, which is crazy. And that have had great personal seasons but have just not played in the Super Bowl. There's expansion teams like the Carolina Panthers that lost to Tom
The
Brady.
Giants won in 86, 9, and 1990, as well as the 2 in
Yeah,
the.
so I actually was gonna say originally they won in 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, which was correct, and the 2010s. So they won in 4 different decades, but they're horrific now and have been horrific for 10 to 12 years. So, you know what I mean? Like, what fun is that for you? So you got to enjoy this time with the Eagles, and as an Eagles fan, because you never know when it's going to drop off. I mean, there's teams, like we said, that like the Panthers, they had Cam Newton with that crazy season, and then they fall short in the Super Bowl when they
Well,
look like
I will
one of the
say
best teams
this.
ever.
I will say this about the Eagles as my closing statement of this week's podcast. As long as Howie Roseman is GM of the Philadelphia Eagles, I can very confidently say we will not have to deal with being a poverty franchise.
But how long will Howie Rose? I mean, Jeffrey Lurie's getting up there in age. He's in his 70s now, so I mean, he's probably going to be doing it until like as much as he can over the next decade. But I don't know how hands-on he's going to be. He's probably going to transition.
But listen, but that's what I mean. As long as
So
Howie is in charge of making all the decisions.
I know, but Howie also has said
confidence.
before that he can't do this forever. So I mean, how long?
Well, yeah,
does
obviously he can't do it forever, but I imagine another 10 years at least. Hopefully, at least another 10
I mean, that's
years.
a lot to ask out of somebody. Yeah, just throw another 10
He's
years
still
on
a
top
young
of
guy,
what
dude. He can keep doing this. He can keep doing this another
I know,
20
but
years.
does somebody realistically want to, like, that takes a lot out of you to do that for 30 straight years and be
All right,
competitive.
listen, don't sour my mood right now by being like, oh, well, we only might have a
I'm
few
just
more
trying to
years
make you
left
more
with
realistic.
Howie.
Also, I don't want to throw on top of it, but to put a cherry on top, I mean, we love Vic Fangio. He's like 67 now, so we don't even know how much longer Vic Fangio is going to be the Eagles'
Well, that
defensive
he's
coordinator.
not as important of a piece as Howie Roseman, but
I mean, he's a pretty important piece too himself,
he's an
though.
important piece. But he's not.
All right, let me ask you this before we get out of here, because we kind of got sidetracked a little bit. But draft-wise, would you rather deal with the 3rd pick? Because it looks like now Travis Hunter's the favorite to go 2nd, and the whole time a lot of people were talking about in the beginning of the draft process, Abdul Carter, most likely going 1 if the Titans stay there, and then it shifted to Cameron Ward, but. People thought that Abdul Carter would be the 2nd pick to pair with Myles Garrett, but it looks like Travis Hunter is the favorite. So at pick 3, that would leave Abdul Carter to be selected by the Giants, who have Kayvon Thibodeau, who they drafted with the 7th overall pick a couple years back. And then they also have Brian Burns, who they traded for and signed a huge extension with. But they would probably add him because he's the best player on the board. If not, Ashton Genty taking a swing as a running back at 3 after they got rid of Saquon, which would be hilarious. But
It would be an example of
but
not.
who would you want to deal with more? Who would you rather deal with? Because it's going to be Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or Shador Sanders, maybe. Which of those 3 guys most likely targets for? Or I even saw a lot of the Giants possibly taking Armand Membo.
I think. Look, I think the Giants, the smartest decision at that spot is to take is to learn from your division rival who just won a Super Bowl and to load up in the trenches and take Abdul Carter. I think that would be the smartest thing for them to do. I don't think this offensive line is ready to start developing a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders. I kind of a similar thing with Travis Hunter, where it's like I don't know. Travis Hunter would still be a good selection, actually, but I think
that would be scary. Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors coming at us. Now we're talking like
well, no, that's not that wouldn't be scary next
up,
season because they still don't have a great quarterback or an offensive line.
They got Russell Wilson. He's definitely going to be able to get the ball to those two guys, guaranteed.
We're not getting into another argument about Russell Wilson.
We're out of time.
We're out of time. We'll talk more.
Who would you rather deal with? You haven't answered my question. Who would you rather deal with?
Well, are you saying if I'm the Eagles and I have to
like in my eyes, I'm like Shedeur could be the pick, but I don't see it happening. Or
are you saying which pick am I least scared of that they go with? Is that the question?
Yeah, like who would you like?
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders because they don't have an offensive line around him.
Yeah, but if I narrow it down to more so Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, the two favorites to
Travis Hunter
in either of those spots.
You'd
rather deal with Travis Hunter?
Yeah. Abdul Carter's a monster, dude, and then especially add him to that D-line.
Lane Johnson's allowed.
Like I said,
Lane Johnson's allowed the least amount of sacks in the past decade of any tackle, and it's by like 8 sacks. So I mean, he's getting locked up on both edges. So and he's not coming up the middle, and he's getting strapped up the middle too. So I mean, he's a great player, but I feel like the situation the Eagles are in, I would feel more confident with our offensive line being able to neutralize him. I mean, Lane Johnson can't play forever though. That's what's a little bit scary.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. Is what you have another year or two of Lane Johnson. You have what 10 years of Abdul Carter.
I don't know. So he just got engaged to his. He just got engaged. So congrats to him. But maybe that rejuvenates him. I mean, we need Lane. Lane's on a pace where, like Lane LeBron, man. Like we need him just to stay fit. We need him playing at 40. He needs to be out there at 40. We need another 5 from him or 6. Honestly, we're being completely honest.
We could always get a good replacement for him, but I would say we are out of time right now, and we will go much deeper into the draft next week.
Yeah, we won't get sidetracked with talking about the Oakland Athletics when we're supposed to be talking about football. But
we can do.
Dante's a baseball guy through and through. But thank you guys for tuning in to the Paisan Sport. I just messed it up too out of nowhere. I just stumbled over my words because I was thinking about you doing it. The Paisan Sports Podcast, episode 93. I won't be stumbling over the intro or the outro next week, but we'll be back to talk about what the Phillies do over their next 2 series before our next podcast. The Sixers update as they wrap up the season and where they stand in the standings. It looks like they're kind of locked into their position now. And if there's any draft stuff coming out. I mean, we have still yet to see a trade for the NFL draft, which is mind-blowing this close to the draft. But, hey, maybe there's some movement. Maybe the Eagles position themselves early. They move from 13 to 8 to 2 to secure Carson Wentz back in the day. Maybe they do a little leapfrogging like that. Dallas Goedert's attached to move up a little bit, and maybe they do something like that. So that'd be interesting. But we'll be back next week to talk about it. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 93.